Hey everybody, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today, we're going to be looking at something I think we all are striving for, and that is healthy relationships.
Right.
And we're going to be looking at this source here. It's called Balancing Self-Care, Regulation, and Interdependency to Build a Healthy Relationship. And it's really got me thinking, it's kind of a tricky thing. Like, how much should we rely on our partners versus kind of going it alone?
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be unpacking today.
Yeah, and you know what's so interesting about the source is that it really pushes back against this idea that, relationships are just something external. It dives deep into how our inner world, our ability to take care of ourselves and to kind of regulate ourselves emotionally, that really is the foundation of being able to connect with someone else.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. We've all heard about self-care. But I'm curious, like, how does this source kind of go beyond, just like face masks and bubble baths?
Yeah, it definitely goes a lot deeper. It connects self-care to something I remember from, way back in Psych 101, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so it argues, that meeting those basic needs, like making sure you're getting enough sleep, that you're eating well, you even have enough personal space, that actually equips us to show up better in our relationships.
So it's like that whole idea that you can't pour from an empty cup. You've got to take care of yourself first.
Exactly. And you know what's great about the source? It doesn't stop at just theory. It gives us some really practical tips too, like communicating your needs to your partner, making sure you schedule that personal time, and respecting each other's boundaries.
Those are some really great starting points.
Yeah.
But what happens when things get tough? How does self-regulation play into all of this?
Oh, that's where it gets really interesting. So, think of self-regulation as like being the captain of your own ship.
Yeah.
Even when the seas get rough, it's about managing your thoughts and your emotions and even your behaviors, especially when you're facing challenges.
So it's like choosing to respond instead of just reacting.
Exactly. And you know what's really cool? This source talks about Albert Bandura's social cognitive theory, which argues that self-regulation is actually a skill. It's not something we're born with. We learn it by watching others, by reflecting on our own actions, and by practicing.
That's pretty empowering. It means that we can actually get better at handling those tough emotional situations.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of techniques that have been proven to help. Things like mindfulness, goal setting,
Okay.
and developing those healthy coping mechanisms, which the source also goes into.
This is great. I'm already feeling like more in control just thinking about this.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens when both partners have a good grasp of this self-regulation? Is that where we start talking about co-regulation?
That's a great question. Yeah, think of co-regulation as like emotional teamwork. You and your partner, you kind of become each other's support system, helping each other stay balanced when those, big emotions come up.
So it's kind of like you're both captains steering that same ship together?
I like that analogy. And what's really fascinating here is that the source, it connects co-regulation to both biology and sociology. So Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory. It explains that when we have these calming interactions with the people we love, it actually activates our vagus nerve, which triggers a soothing response in our nervous system.
Oh, wow. So there's an actual biological reason why we feel calmer
Yeah.
and safer after, we get a hug from our partner or something.
Exactly. And then from that sociological perspective, co-regulation really strengthens those social bonds, which just makes us feel more connected and supported. So it's like this positive feedback loop. The more you practice co-regulation, the stronger your bond becomes.
Okay, so we've got self-care, we've got self-regulation, and now co-regulation. It all sounds great, but where do we draw the line between, healthy reliance and becoming too dependent on our partner?
Yeah, that is a really important question. And the source makes a very clear distinction between codependency and interdependency. So codependency is when you lean so heavily on the other person that you really lose yourself. It's about blurring those boundaries and relying on the other person for like your emotional stability.
Well, so it's kind of like that image of two vines that get so entangled that you can't even tell where one begins and the other ends.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it. And so that's where interdependency comes in. It's all about supporting each other while still maintaining your own identity. So it's more like, two strong trees standing side by side. Their roots might be intertwined, offering that support and that stability, but their branches, they reach independently towards the sky.
I love that imagery. It really highlights, the importance of keeping that sense of individuality, even when you're in a relationship.
Exactly. And the source really drives this point home. That interdependency is about mutual respect and shared responsibilities. It's about allowing each person to thrive as an individual. So, how do we actually cultivate that kind of healthy interdependence. It seems like a pretty delicate balance to strike.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. The source mentions some like steps we can take, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. That first step is all about fostering individuality. It's about, encouraging each other's personal growth
Hmm.
and passions, even if they're different.
So it's not about becoming like clones of each other. It's about celebrating those differences.
Exactly. And then that second step is setting those healthy boundaries. It's about, making sure there's mutual respect and that you have clear expectations within the relationship.
That makes sense. It's like creating that safe space where both partners can thrive. Yeah. Without feeling stifled.
Right. And then finally, the source really emphasizes the importance of open communication. It's about feeling comfortable expressing your needs and your fears and your dreams without judgment.
I can see how all three of those elements, the individuality and the boundaries and the communication, how those would create a strong foundation for a healthy relationship. It's like building a house on solid supports.
I like that analogy. And the source argues that the benefits of interdependency, they go beyond just getting along. It can lead to deeper intimacy and resilience and even mutual growth.
That's fascinating. So it's not just about avoiding conflict. It's about creating this dynamic where both people can really flourish.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're stronger together, but that we also each have our own unique contributions to make.
Okay, so we've talked about the dangers of codependency and the benefits of interdependency. But what about the flip side? Can we swing too far in the other direction and become too independent?
That's a great question. And actually, the source addresses that directly. It talks about this concept of hyper-independence, which is basically taking independence to the extreme.
So it's like pushing people away
Hmm.
and insisting on doing everything yourself, even when you could use some help.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times this comes from, past hurts or fear of vulnerability or this belief that needing help is a sign of weakness.
It's like building walls instead of bridges. I can see how that would lead to isolation and put a lot of strain on relationships.
Absolutely. But the good news is the source also offers some ways to kind of find that sweet spot between independence and connection. It suggests acknowledging our vulnerabilities, building trust, and finding activities that we can enjoy together.
So it's about recognizing that we're all human. We all
Mhm.
need support sometimes, and that leaning on each other is actually a sign of strength, not weakness.
Exactly. And the source connects this back to John Bowlby's attachment theory. Bowlby's work really emphasizes how important secure attachment is for our overall well-being.
So being able to rely on others in a healthy way is not just a nice to have, it's actually crucial to our emotional health.
Exactly. And this goes hand in hand with being able to accept influence from others, which research has shown is a big predictor of happy and fulfilling relationships.
This is really making me rethink my ideas about what a healthy relationship really means. It's not just about being independent or taking care of yourself. It's about finding that balance between self-reliance and healthy reliance.
Yeah, that's a really powerful insight. And it brings us to kind of the final piece of the puzzle, which is understanding what healthy reliance and accepting influence actually look like in practice.
Okay, I'm ready for that. What does the source have to say about putting these concepts into action?
Well, it all starts with kind of redefining what it means to rely on someone. So the source defines healthy reliance as being open to other people's support and perspectives while still staying true to yourself.
So recognizing that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but actually a sign of self-awareness and strength.
Exactly. And it's about acknowledging that we don't have all the answers and that our partners often have really valuable insights that can help us grow.
Which brings us back to accepting influence.
Yeah.
I'm still a little bit wary of that concept. How do we make sure that it doesn't turn into giving up our own autonomy?
Yeah, that's a really valid concern. And the source addresses it directly. It emphasizes that accepting influence isn't about blindly following someone else's lead.
So it's not about becoming a puppet. It's about having this healthy dialogue where both people feel heard and respected.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that your partner may have valuable insights that can enrich your life, but ultimately you're still the captain of your own ship.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about that balance between being open to influence and maintaining a strong sense of self.
Exactly. And the source gives us some very concrete strategies to help us navigate this dynamic effectively.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are those strategies?
Well, first and foremost, it's about active listening, really truly hearing and understanding your partner's perspective, even if you don't agree with it.
So putting aside our own judgments and defenses
Yeah,
and really trying to step into their shoes.
exactly. And then, as we talked about before, setting those clear boundaries is essential. Knowing your limits and being comfortable saying no when you need to.
It's about creating a space where you can be open to influence without feeling pressured or controlled.
Precisely. And finally, the source encourages us to seek diverse input, not just from our partners, but from a variety of sources.
That's an interesting point. It's about broadening our horizons and considering different perspectives before making decisions.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we can learn and grow from anyone, not just from people who share our exact
This
viewpoints.
has been such a rich conversation. I feel like we've really explored the complexity of healthy relationships from so many different angles.
I agree. We've covered a lot of ground. From the importance of self-care and self-regulation to the nuances of co-regulation and interdependency.
And even, the pitfalls of codependency and hyperindependence.
Yeah, but there's one more key concept I think is worth highlighting before we wrap up.
Okay, what's that?
It's this idea of bidding for connection, which the source ties to the work of John Gottman.
Bidding for connection. I haven't heard of that before. What does that mean?
Oh, it's a really fascinating concept. Basically, it refers to those small, everyday attempts that we make to connect with our partners. It could be as simple as a smile or a shared glance, or just asking them about their day.
So it's like those little moments where you're saying,
Uh-huh.
hey, I see you. I'm thinking about you.
Exactly. And Gottman's research found that, couples who are really good at responding to these bids for connection, they tend to have much stronger and more fulfilling relationships.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like those small moments, they really add up over time
Yeah.
and they create that sense of closeness and intimacy.
Exactly. And the source highlights how you know. Our ability to both bid for connection and respond to our partner's bids. It's all tied in with those concepts we've been talking about: self-care, self-regulation, and interdependency.
I can see how that would be the case.
Yeah.
If you're feeling depleted or overwhelmed, you're probably less likely to reach out or respond positively to your partner.
Exactly. When we're taking care of ourselves and we're feeling emotionally balanced, we're just more available and receptive to those moments of connection.
And when we feel secure and interdependent in that relationship, we're more likely to trust that our bids will be met with warmth and understanding.
Precisely. It all comes full circle. And the source offers some really practical tips for becoming more adept at this bidding for connection and responding effectively.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's hear those tips.
All right, well, that first step is simply becoming more aware of those bids for connection, both our own and our partners. It's about tuning into those small gestures and those attempts to engage.
So paying attention to the little things, not just those big, grand, romantic gestures.
Exactly. And then it's about responding thoughtfully and intentionally. It doesn't have to be anything big or elaborate. It could be as simple as making eye contact, offering a warm smile, or saying, "Tell me more about that."
It's about making your partner feel heard and valued.
Precisely. And the source emphasizes that. Even if we can't fully engage in that moment, we can still acknowledge our partner's bid.
So if you're in the middle of something and you can't give them your full attention, you can still say something like, I hear you. Can we talk about this later?
Exactly. It's about showing that you care, even if you can't drop everything right then. And the source also encourages us to be really mindful of our tone of voice and our body language.
That makes sense. Sometimes those nonverbal cues speak louder than words.
Absolutely. And the source reminds us that bidding for connection isn't just about those big conversations or emotional moments. It's about infusing those small, everyday interactions with warmth and affection and genuine interest.
It's like weaving a tapestry of connection, thread by thread, moment by moment.
I love that image. And the source suggests making a conscious effort to sprinkle those moments of connection throughout your day, whether it's a shared joke or a quick hug, or just simply expressing gratitude for something your partner has done.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I feel like I have this whole new understanding of what it means to create and sustain a healthy and fulfilling relationship.
Me too. I think we've explored such a wide range of concepts, from the importance of, that self-care and self-regulation to all the nuances of co-regulation and interdependency, and even the art of bidding for connection.
Yeah, it's like we've assembled this toolkit
Hmm.
for building stronger and more resilient relationships. And I love how the source gives us both, the practical advice and that theoretical framework.
Yeah, it's really cool how all of these concepts are interconnected. They all work together to create this dynamic where both partners can thrive as individuals and as a couple.
It's like a dance where each partner brings their own unique strengths and vulnerabilities, and together they create something beautiful and harmonious.
I love that. And remember, the journey of building healthy relationship, it's ongoing. It's about
Yeah.
being curious and experimenting and communicating openly with your partner to find what works best for you.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it as insightful and inspiring as we have. And remember, those small moments of connection can make all the difference. So keep bidding for connection and keep nurturing those relationships that matter most. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a new and fascinating topic. Until then,